Hello guys.
Select your god.
I might do Soul this game, I think. Yeah. I haven't played her that much, but I also don't think she's that good in solo, which is partly why I haven't played her much. But right now I just want to play her. She is pretty fun with the aspect, I'm not gonna lie. We're definitely a high damaging comp, that's for sure. Well, just for context, I waited 10 minutes for this queue. It better pop faster this time. Hello, Orc. Let's see. How much do I still need for this? Not that much anymore. Tried Kingdom Come, it's pretty nice. I tried Avowed today. I also refunded it today. Not that it was bad, but it was a bit bland. I think on a different time where I didn't have anything else to play, I would enjoy playing Avowed, but I wanted to just try it real fast because it seems like a game for me in the right mood. But yeah, for now I just refunded it. Because I know I'm not going to play it all that much. Like, I don't want to spend time on an RPG now when Monster Hunter Wilds is coming so soon. And I know once that comes out, that will just take priority. But I was just a bit bored yesterday and decided I wanted to play something different. And then I bought Avowed, and then I never got around to it, so I played it today. And yeah, I tried it for about like an hour and a half. And I did enjoy it to a certain extent. Like, the exploration and stuff is fine, the combat is fine. But the character dialogue and stuff like that was a bit bland for like an RPG. Which is also what I've heard about the game. So yeah, I decided if I want to play it, it's not going to be right now. Which is fine. Like, I just finished the Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy yesterday as well, actually. And that was a fantastic game. Super underrated too. It got a lot of shit because it came out somewhat shortly after the Avengers game, which was horrendous. And then I think people just didn't really get around to it, because that game is really good. It has a fantastic story. It's got pretty good combat. A bit clunky at times, but the combat was pretty nice and satisfying. And like, generally just character moments as well as the story was great in that game. Heavily recommend that game to people, for sure. I believe it won Best Narrative as well, yeah, at the Game Awards when the year it came out. It's like 2021 or something like that. 2021 or yeah, it must have been 2021. It does deserve it. But I believe it underperformed, so there is not going to be any sequel or anything like that for it, as far as I've heard. Because it just, yeah, it just underperformed. It's tragic. And I'm just fucking sitting here freezing my ass off. Like, wrapped around in a blanket. It's still fucking cold. Ugh. All the snow. But once I get into the game, I usually heat up quite a bit. Whether it be from frustration or just stress. Or just being focused, I guess. It is interesting. I feel like a lot of people are ignoring bots a lot more now. Like, bots is just so, like, it's just often open now. But I guess there isn't really any bans that are set in stone. Like, sometimes Afra is open, sometimes you see Aladdin open. I think the biggest thing people don't want to deal with right now is Amma. People hate dealing with Amma. I still want to play Soul though. We'll see if I might need to start Livebinder. Just depends on what I'm against. Just for some early safety. Looks like it might be Morrigan though. Actually, I have no idea. Morrigan is also support these days. Shit could be anywhere. It is funny how Morrigan in Smite 1 essentially went from like a mid to a like mid jungler type god to now being support or solo like over jungle. She's not even a good jungler. Damn. What a comp we have. We actually have bots mid now. Wild. I think we have good late, but I don't know how the bots mid is gonna have a good time this game. Bots clear is kinda ass, I'm not gonna lie. His jungling is fine because you have Bumbas. But if you're not gonna have Bumbas, I mean, there isn't a Bumbas for lane clear, so. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this feels pretty rough. Especially, he's gonna be into Gunter too. It's really not a good matchup for him on that bots. But I have faith. I'm sure it'll be just fine. It's definitely a beat scheme for me. He's without aspect though, so that's probably for the better. Which I do believe has been pretty heavily nerfed now. Maybe that's why I see more bots. I did forget about the small hotfix that came out, where bots aspect was pretty heavily nerfed in terms of damage. Like the 2 does 0 fucking damage now. It was nerfed by like 100 base damage, which is fucking crazy. But good. I still think that's a bad idea though. I've said it before, I wish they removed the stun and just simply gave it a slow or some kind of other smaller CC that you can still react to. Giving it a stun is so stupid. you're either gonna make it broken or useless, because you need to remove the damage on it, basically. Which is kind of the route they did. Like, barely, like, I don't know, maybe they just want to make him a frontline or something like that, or a solo or a support. Because he's not gonna be a jungler as long as that thing's gonna do no damage. It's super weird. I'm not really sure what they're trying to do with him. But that was definitely a very big damage hit, to the point where it might not even be worth it to play it now. I don't even know. In reality, it's probably still fine. Like, you can definitely still play it, but it feels like that's a pretty big hit in terms of base damage on it. I'm not really sure how that's gonna affect him. Suppose we'll see throughout the day. Stick around until level 2.
Your left tower is under attack. Take this jungle bomb.
Herc should be able to clear that fast. I could probably yank this
It's so.
safely.
Enemy missing.
They held their abilities for pretty long. That's annoying. Still though, not too bad. Doesn't really affect anything here.
First, thank you. Follow me. I'll attack right lane.
Well, kind of whiffed that. He'll die eventually. Luckily, he's pretty slow at this time of the game.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. Your left tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
Yo, Anur, tío. Tío, me cago en tu puta madre, me cago en Dios ya.
Under attack.
Todo imbécil, tío.
An ally has been slain. Your left tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Enemy missing middle.
Yeah, this guy trolls pretty often, so I'm not really surprised that he's doing it again.
Retreat left lane. Killing spree. Too bad. 信じられない. Well done.
It's back. Not really anything new there. I don't know if he just tilts fast or if he just likes trolling. I'm not really sure. Happens pretty often.
Enemy missing right.
Attack.
I assume you level the 3 more often than the 1 now in Sol, but
An enemy has been
I guess
slain.
as a solo I'll just level my 1 for sustain.
Shut down. Enemy missing middle.
Time to explode.
Gotta man up.
Please, but Arnold is doing main jungle and now you two while is
An ally has been slain. Walk it off. Your left tower is under attack.
Interesting. Why is Morgan here too? Well, this just seems cooked overall.
大丈夫. Attack. Your left tower is under attack. Killing spree.
I think I would have died no matter what, because Herc blinked. Couldn't really get away from that, but Morgan being there kind of meant that I decided that I couldn't get away either way, because I was trying to juke.
Your right
Probably shouldn't
tower
have tried either way.
attack.
More than likely lost blue for this too. And then a full wave. Yikes. It was a terrible time to die. WO3 is kind of fun. Yeah, I've seen some people do it. I was thinking my 1 just for sustain, or more sustain as a solo, but
Ultimate is down. Your middle tower is under attack.
But then he used this shit. I did not know he had Phoenix Feather.
Ally has been slain.
That's kind of why I ended up losing the trade as much as I did. Because we did about the same damage to each other, but he just Phoenix Feathered.
Your middle tower is under attack. No.
Safety override failing.
The enemy team has destroyed the gold. Your middle tower is under attack.
I don't think we're winning with how it's going in left at the moment, but I don't think we have bad players in this team. I definitely think we can if we actually get to late game. In a state where we're still able to somewhat fight back. I am just AFK farming as much as I can right now.
Man,
Your middle
don't take the
tower is
kill,
under
please.
attack. Walk it off.
Probably should have worked more though. That's fine.
Your middle tower is under attack. You have been slain.
Vision feels enemies in right.
Like, what is more again? The mid? It's a fucking support, man. Why is the support here?
Do nada.
Yeah, I'll start warding. Because if the support's gonna visit me too, that's gonna be a nightmare. He's been out twice now.
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
Yeah, I think I would level 3 if I was planning on fighting more. But in this case, I need to save my 3 for getting away, because I'm just kind of getting shat on. Uller ganked me super early. Morrigan has been hurt twice as the support. I think I'm just gonna save my 3 by like when I actually need it instead, because this is not gonna be a fun lane. I need to actually just AFK farm.
Enemy missing middle. Your left tower is under attack.
Novice is using the boost.
Well, I mean, can we just leave solo, please? There's 5 people here every single time. I don't want to fight here.
Ally has been slain. Yes. Your right tower is under attack.
I mean, it's kind of in my hands to surrender now if we actually want to. We probably could. I still feel like it's premature to surrender now, though. I'll give it one chance. And only one. Because this will probably just snowball out of control, but... like, we have good players, man.
Your right tower.
I don't know who the bots is. I know this guy is actually decent when he tries. And obviously I trust the 2 others in Zero and Lycan, so... I imagine everything is just done. Surprisingly, this is not.
Ultimate is down. Killing spree. Back. Attack left lane. Ultimate is ready. Attack.
Go, go, go.
Your left tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Double kill. Rampage. Going down. Your left tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
I really do wish I had someone to do a queue with on like a general basis. Because it would be so much easier just to have one person to rely on. I don't think this is just one of those games it wouldn't matter. This dude is just completely making sure we're losing no matter what here, but
Your left tower is under attack. The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
same level, well not anymore. About the same level as Herc at least, so could be worse. And I'm not even sure I feel like contesting my blue buff, because that's probably going to be more than just him.
On my way.
Yeah, fucking Morgan is there already. It's fucking waiting. I don't care about it then.
I'll attack left lane. An enemy has been slain. Attack the Gold Fury. Walk it off. Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Your middle tower is under attack. You have been slain.
Almost killed him too. What do you mean did so much damage to her? What the fuck? Just almost one-shot her.
And you're not very.
Oh no, dude. What is bots doing? Dude. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we just got decided. What is he building? Why is he so tanky? He has so much HP. Ah.
Your right tower is under attack.
I didn't even get a chance to vote that time, so I was gonna surrender this time.
Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack. Your middle tower has been Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Your left tower is under attack.
Yeah, I don't have the pen to kill him right now.
Your left tower is under attack. The Pyromancer has arrived.
Don't know why we would pause.
Your left tower is under attack.
Don't feel like I want to make this game longer than it is. Yeah, I mean Morgan is just literally sitting on my ass here. I can't play the game. She was just waiting for me to walk up too.
Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has left the game. Your right tower is under attack.
That's good at least. Let's just report him.
An ally has been slain.
I'm not even sure which one to report him on,
Your
honestly.
middle tower is under
Three
attack.
of them.
Your right Phoenix is under attack.
Like, if he's having a bad day, that's fine. Shit happens. But like, just you know, go do something else. Don't ruin other people's lives or days because of it. Like, Hurricane's fucking Phoenix Feather is impossible to deal with at the moment. They're just all too fat. Doing shit like that would normally get you killed as a frontline so fucking easily.
Your left tower is under attack.
Dude, that new wall does so much damage now. Level 20 new one.
An ally.
Fuck, he's back.
Awesome.
Surely he will surrender this time, right? Let's do it. No. Okay.
Okay. You have been
I mean, bots. We could actually kill him there. Just stay on him.
An enemy has been slain.
Damn, that still did so much damage to me even though he wasn't really using it on me in the first place. I am 3 levels down though.
An ally has been slain.
Do Iris even ban people right now? I have no idea. Man, why are you jumping the other way, man? What's the point? Why are you jumping away from us? I'll just go farm. I don't want to fight this.
Double kill. Killing spree. Your middle phoenix is under attack.
Like, bots is doing just as much harm as the Honor is at this point. He's not, but I don't think he's doing anything good.
Your middle phoenix has been destroyed. Your titan is under attack. Your titan is under attack. Shut down. Double kill. Double kill. I shall
That's good. They're just being over aggressive. That helps us so much. Now we get fire waves. And get some extra farm. Super calculated.
careful net. An ally has been slain. Destroyed a middle enemy tower.
Damn, they've just made sure to clean out their whole jungle before they left. Goddamn. I mean, if we can make it to full build, I definitely do think we have a chance. Wow.
The enemy team has destroyed the fire giant.
That's great. Well done.
No, man. You're really trying, but
I did the good damage earlier, but getting a little poked here. Oh my fucking god, and I just am not able to play the game because of it. Oh, okay. And I'm dead. Oh man. Oh, just over chasing. The fact that we got 2 picks in left and we decided to keep chasing this for literally 0 reason, I think it was really stupid. I just want to farm, man. We're giving it... Actually, the thing is, we keep getting small wins, but we're not allowing ourselves to come back from them. We finally get windows, and we're not using them to our advantage at all. We're just chasing, we want more, when we really don't fucking need to.
Titan is under attack. Your middle phoenix is under attack. Your middle phoenix has been destroyed. Your Titan is under attack.
Morgan. We got them all, I guess, so whatever. I'll take the death. I am playing this pretty rough as well, but like I have not had a whole lot of chances to play the game. I feel like I'm always just being jumped. I'm still top damage, so like I'm not doing nothing, but doesn't change the fact that it's super annoying. Go farm, boys. Don't chase the Hercules. Though bots does have an ult soon. That could be good.
you have ult.
Different targets, but still got one, so that's good. I just want full build, man. So badly. Ah, he's dead. Ah, man.
Slain.
How do I first burst of my Tudum hit the archers there? That was weird. When the second one did.
Enemy spotted. Gank. The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
Reaver done as well. Now I just need to finish my starter, and I am in a comfortable
No
position.
beats.
Defend. Complete it.
I guess I shouldn't have followed, but I wanted to try the desperate play. I also missed my ult on Uller, that was bad. I hit someone else, but I was kind of aiming for the Uller and I still missed him.
Your right Phoenix is under attack. Your middle Phoenix is under attack. Your right Phoenix has been destroyed. Your middle Phoenix has been destroyed.
Is Shield Splitter actually good? I haven't tried it.
Your Titan is under attack.
It's big ults.
Your Titan is under attack.
Dude, this is so fucking healing, man. Oh, the fire waves just smacking the Titan now. Fucking Mantle of Discord as well. Yeah, it doesn't matter. What an unlucky fucking game for me overall. Finally I get a chance to actually do something after spawning here. I get fucking smacked by Mantle of Discord. Nasty. Hello, Goblin Yeet. Yeah, I mean, just report on her and move on. That's about it. That was just a super unfun game. I think I worded too much this game too, but I feel like I needed to. I don't think I can. Yeah, damn it. The chat closing is so stupid, man. What's with all the censoring in this fucking game? Huh? Hi-res? Let people type. I know sometimes he comes into my chat, so I can just answer him if he comes in. But I do think that was a bit of a report-worthy game, Mr. E9EM. Or whatever the name is. Guess I won't play Sol. I don't really know what to play either. Like, I feel like... I don't want to sound like a bitch, but this happens so often for me, where someone gets so shit on, and then they just come to my lane, because whoever they're shitting on just keeps getting shit on now, and their support no longer needs them. I see you have Aladdin level 8. Have you played him in solo, or mid, or just jungle? Mainly solo, pretty much just solo. I like Aladdin quite a bit. It's a lot of fun. But I don't think he's that good in solo. He's got a pretty rough early game, but Aladdin is just broken if you get him to late game. And solo is one of those roles that allow you to kind of just farm and be safe. And Aladdin has very good escapability, so he's hard to gank, and you can generally just chill and not think about anything when you play Aladdin in solo. But if you're against something like Hercules or I don't know, something that's good at being aggressive early, he's gonna struggle. Because while he has good wave clear, he does not do very well in fighting early on. He's just squishy and he doesn't do enough damage to really kill anything yet. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty decent in both mid and solo. He's got a good wave clear. And his one just generally makes him work as kind of like a mage too. He's more of like an assassin type character, but because of his one, you can easily just poke from a distance and still be useful like a mage, especially late game. You can just live off of poking late game. You don't really have to go in. The one is so strong when you have a full build. Are these dudes just announcing what they're gonna play? Interesting. Like, I'll probably get Aladdin this game. Nope, they banned it. Then I'm not getting Aladdin.
Select your god.
So, for now, it's kind of between Afro and Bots. Well, Bots actually, no, he was still nerfed. I don't know if he's even worth it. I guess I'll keep an eye on him. Whatever. I'll play Afro. Because I don't want to deal with it. Do you ever build poly with Aladdin? Yes, always. There's no build, if you're going int at least. Like, if you're not going int, then yeah, maybe. You don't want to do poly. But if you're always going for an int Aladdin, you need poly. He does incredibly well with poly. He's very good at auto-canceling. And I usually don't sell the lamp, but I'm not an expert on whether you should sell the lamp or not. I generally think the consensus is if you keep the lamp, it will be worth it later, but keeping the lamp for early game, maybe to get like an early lead in some way, you can maybe sell it and get something better in the moment. But I like building for late game, because Aladdin is just a way too good late game to not just try and build for that. It's kind of like a Nuwa situation. You want to build for your ult to really do a whole lot of damage going into late game. It's kind of the same thing with Aladdin. It's just not just his ult, it's his whole kit you want to build towards. Okay. I also kind of regret picking Afro here. I think I should ban it instead. Afro is really hard to carry with, and I think I should play something else that can be a bit more impactful in team fights. On Aphrodite, I feel like I rely on someone else too, because I want to be linked to someone who is also useful, and that might not be the case. So I shouldn't play Afro unless I know my teammates. Obviously, there's no god builder at the moment, but what I always build on Aladdin and Soul Lane is I go Conduit Gem to start up with, and Gem, what is it called? Book of Thoth first. Then I go Spear of Deso, I go Poly, and then depending on what I need here, I will go for some kind of pen, which is, you know, it could be Doom Orb or it could be Obsidian Shard. Or if I'm just getting really fed, I just go straight into Rot of Tahuti. And then I would go for pen right after that instead. And lastly, it's just kind of a filler item, like whatever I feel like I need. Sometimes it's Soul Gem. I like going Soul Gem for some kind of like lifesteal and just a bit more ability damage, woven in with a passive. Or if you feel like you have enough damage, you can also go for something like Chronos Pendant for just lower cooldowns and stuff. So. And I have not tried the Strength Aladdin build, but I do not believe it is as good, which is why I just haven't done it. Yeah, you can just put the last one as like a filler. Filler is just that whatever you need in that moment. Strength Aladdin is better early, but it's worse late. That's probably the best way to put it. But if I play solo, I generally want to go for late game stuff. Because I won't be there for the first 15 minutes of the game. I'm just farming and occasionally rotating, but for the most part, as a solo laner, I am not really supposed to be anywhere else but solo for the longest time. Yeah, I mean, Aladdin is the most broken god late game, I would still say. Arguably the most. Some other gods have, you know, shown up a bit, like Anubis is also quite broken late game and will be even more broken later in the next patch, as well as like Hades and stuff, but I think Aladdin just has the potential to do a lot late game. Not just with the one poking, but the knock-up on the 3. The knock-up on this ability is insanely good. Very long ranged as well. It's hard to deal with. If this knock-up lands late game, you should get a kill. That's basically how he works. If you miss it, you should get out, unless, you know, you judge the situations to still be good, but generally, you should definitely get a kill if you land the knock-up. Because when you land the knock-up, you get a free auto with poly, then you dash cancel, you get another poly shot, and by that time, any squishy is dead. If they're not dead, or maybe it's a tank target, then you can also use your 1, that's another poly shot as well. And if all goes to shit, you have your ult to still maybe get out, or use it to kill someone else too. He is just really, really good. And that's not even accounting the potential wishes you can put into it to just reset all your cooldowns. Yeah, I'm not even sure what they should do to really nerf Aladdin. Like, I don't think they need to nerf Aladdin so much to the point where... Like, it's just his damage, really. I think it's just his scaling. It's just a bit too high. Because I actually think his early game is pretty decently balanced. And I don't think the ultimate is particularly broken. It's definitely good. Just the nature of it is good. But I don't think that's going to change. It's just how it works. And some ultimates are just naturally really good. So, do you take Blinker and Aladdin in solo too? No, I usually go beats. You want to make sure you're not interrupted and when you do what you do. Obviously, it depends on what comp I'm against. If they have no CC, I'm not gonna go beats. But for the most part, if I'm not going beats, I will go Aegis. It's gonna be one of those two. But for the most part, like in 90% of cases, it's beats. It's the same thing on anything else where you can kill something very, very fast and in melee range because you just don't want to get CC'd. Like sometimes it's safe to just pre-beats when you know you're gonna kill someone. Just use it to make sure that you actually get that kill. So no outside forces will intervene. Your build still rerun Aladdin? No, not really. He's more of an all-in, you just want burst. That's the thing, realistically you don't want to do soul gem on targets you know you can just two-shot. Because it's not really worth it for the passive for that, and it's very expensive too. Like, there are a few gods you don't really build... You build it on poke gods. And while I think you could build it on Aladdin, I don't think it is worth it. More than something else. But like, if I saw someone build it in competitive or like even in ranked, I wouldn't be like, that's bad. I would just think it's a choice. Because you can definitely just play the poke game on Aladdin once you hit late game. It might even be better to do that. I thought about it in my last game where I played Aladdin and I was just poking for late game stuff. But I do think it's just more valuable to go in and one-shot someone. It very much depends on the god, I think. Like on Morrigan, I wouldn't go Soul Reaver either. She's kind of the same situation as Aladdin where... I don't know, maybe she's a bad example, because she just ults into something else and does most of her damage that way. Though I guess Soul Reaver also wouldn't be terrible on her, because you do poke with her too. I don't know, I guess I'm not the expert on that stuff. While I do like playing mages, when to and when not to build Soul Reaver is kind of new as well, because it was just recently buffed again. I don't actually know who I wouldn't build Soul Reaver on. Outside of just the Aladdin. I don't do it on Hades. Hades is also one you definitely should not. Because he's not a poke mage. Hades, I know for a fact you do not want to go to Soul Reaver on. He's more of like a lifesteal burst mage. You don't want to do poke related builds. He's an all-in mage, so he either kills everything or dies. Same thing with Anubis. Actually, that's also a good one. Anubis doesn't build Soul Reaver either, from what I've seen. But like Agni, like Ra, Poseidon probably even. Poseidon I guess is a bit 50-50, because you also build attack speed on him sometimes. Poseidon probably has a lot of varying builds, but... I don't think I would build Soul Reaver on Poseidon, because I'm just more of a fan of doing like the Brace of the Abyss attack speed related builds on him. How are you building a new business solo right now? Totem of Death worth it? Or no, I usually don't go Totem of Death. Maybe my build is a bit weird, but like I usually go Soul Gem, straight into a Chronos Pendant, and then maybe Spear of Death or something. I haven't played a whole lot of Anubis, and next patch it will change how you build Anubis and Hades. So I can't say that for sure at the moment, because some new lifesteal items will be added next patch, like Bancroft from Smite 1. So the lifesteal mages will change in terms of builds. So. Actually, I should have banned Aphra instead of Hercules. It's a stacked lobby, is it?
Select your god.
Is it really, Warwick? Could have fooled me. Also, I'm down to a duo queue if you want, Warwick. I need someone else with hands. At least until you don't want to do it anymore. Aphrodite butts. Just lost the game because you're Aladdin lamped. Damn. I do think the lamp is a pretty cool thing where you can actually turn it on its head as the enemy team. And then when you all get TP'd out, you can just get completely ambushed. I think that is really cool. So like in competitive, I would imagine what you really want to do is you only want to make sure one person goes out at a time. That's what happened. Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really cool that that's a thing. Because it gives it this like, I don't know, I think in general the lamp is just a really cool added thing. It becomes this like, oh shit, the Aladdin lamp is on the table. What do we do about it? Are we entering and helping our one friend who's stuck in there? Are we waiting to ambush them when they come out? Like all that kind of stuff is what I would be really interested into what people would do in competitive. Because it varies so much depending on where you are, how the situation is looking, which gods you have, like all of that stuff. If you're against the Poseidon and the Aladdin is on the enemy team, like you should wait outside, man. You really should. Cripple the shit out of them, and once they get out, cracking the fuck out of them. It's great setup in a way that is just self-setup from the Aladdin himself, you know? It's so cool. Hello, Dutch. Thank you for the raid. I appreciate it. It's definitely a beats game. And I am against bots. That is good, because I would rather deal with bots than Fenrir in solo as Aladdin, I think. But yeah, I mean, you were asking for Aladdin builds before. I can just show you in this game. So. I hope you had a good stream though, Dutch. Did you grab some wins, or did you get shit on? I can tell you that I'm getting shit on. We got Anubis ulted Chug 1 and 2. Yeah. Chug is also a pretty good one, yeah. Especially if you have the aspect too. You got boosted? Oh, you boosted, I see. Nice, man. Can you boost me? Because I am playing with people without hands a lot these days. It's actually crazy. I don't even know anyone in this game. And I recognize this name, but I don't remember if it's good or not. So that's the life I'm living right now. Next time I slam queue, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, just you can just let me know if you wanna hit up sometime. I just try and time it so that it doesn't interfere with my like dog walking. That's kind of the only thing that stops me from streaming multiple hours at a time, is that I need to walk the dog.
Minions have spawned.
Well, let's see. Also, can someone confirm to me, is the hotfix in place? Is it live? The one that nerfed bots' aspects? Because I don't know if it is. Yes? Okay, so bots aspect is heavily nerfed. That's good. I like to hear it. What did he hit? Just jump? Okay. Well, I somehow missed the unmissable ability. My Neath has a good relic. It's got Aegis. That is definitely a choice into their gods, I'll tell you that much. But he's also into a Cupid, so I don't think it's terrible. Damn it. I need to stick around for another wave now. Otherwise I'm just gonna deny myself. Did he jump the wave again? So he couldn't jump away? Interesting. I definitely feel like I'm in a baby game with what I'm seeing at the moment. And I just saw Fenrir come from this side, but at least it didn't do my blue. Achilles actually, like, I met Rage yesterday with some ranked off stream. He fucked us up, man. I was playing Aladdin that game, and if I wasn't playing Aladdin, we would have struggled so badly in that game. I had some good teammates though. We had just, I think, the better teamwork in that game, so we won anyway. But holy fuck, dude, he was shitting on us. But Rage is also very good. Like, he's one of the best junglers in the EU. Three plats and 1 diamond. Okay. Waiting for the jump. Nope, that sucks. I didn't want to ult and then he just jumps, but I probably could have just done that before.
Okay.
Oh well. Yeah, he is a little confused. But you know what? I need that right now. I gotta win. No! The cheap viewers! I still only want the expensive ones.
Ultimate is ready.
Yeah, I'm glad he ulted when he got it. I was hoping for it. Then I could save my beats. He would have died either way. Now the stuttering began after tapped out. And now it's gone. I don't know what's with the stuttering. Sometimes I guess when I tap out, but now it's gone, so I guess I'm not complaining. does of blue. And he's back in again. Okay.
To me.
How about just this? So 2k straight up. Okay. I won't back until I get it then. Oh, that did not land where I pressed it, but that's fine. No.
An ally has been slain. Let's settle this.
He dodged the other way. It was a simple 50-50, right or left. It was right.
Your middle tower is under attack.
I feel like I actually am lagging a little bit in this one. I feel a bit of weird stuttering in this server. Let's just blame it on that.
Enemy spotted.
On my way.
There is in fact a gap coming.
Record.
Whatever. I'll back for Deso. How's your grind going? Not great. I've been stuck in this same place for a while. And I wish, really wish I could say that it's because I've had bad games and it's my fault. But that is not the case for about 90% of them. It is just decided like 5 minutes in because there is just such a big difference in skill levels on each team. It is rough.
Record.
It is really rough at times. That's weird. My dash shouldn't have even hit the minions there too. There is definitely something up with this server.
Record. Killing spree.
Oh no.
Apologies.
No problem. Be careful. Your middle tower is under attack. To me.
It's been the full damage so far. That's really good for me.
Slain. Record.
And he backs a lot, which is also very good for me because he's denying himself so much.
To me, Genie.
I don't like how much it stutters when I land because that's gonna fuck up my late game combo. If I can't
Your middle
auto
tower
cancel
is
when I
under
land with my
attack.
jump, it's gonna be so awkward. I might not be able to actually poly
Your
them in.
right tower is under attack. To me.
Enemy missing right.
To me, Genie.
Damn it.
Go, 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 go. To me. To me. Enemy missing left.
he didn't back, I do not know what he was doing there.
I'll gank right lane.
Yeah, his blue isn't even up yet. I have no idea what's happening.
Record.
I actually missed it. That's crazy.
An enemy has been slain.
Call me impressed.
An ally has been slain. Shut me down. Enemy missing left.
I'll actually just back here. Grab my poly.
To me. An ally has been slain.
They're gonna have an annoying comp late game for sure with Afro and Gip. There's a lot of survivability and a lot of potential savings for teammates,
Your middle
but
tower is under attack. Enemy missing.
doesn't matter if I can one-shot them. See if he stays. He just backs a lot, man. Guess screw it, I'll go gank Cupid.
Right. You have slain an enemy. Enemy spotted. An ally has been slain.
Yeah, just enjoying the wind, sitting in the grass, chilling. And this crazy man with his thunder power just decided to stop by. Slap him in the face with a green fist or blue fist. I'm still getting really worried with the stuttering. He just jumped it. I saw that, but Gip's here. Of course he is.
To me, Genie. To me, Genie. Retreat. To me. To me.
No, Thor. Tragic.
Be careful left. Enemies incoming. Let's get 'em. Be back in a stitch.
Slay an enemy. Attack fire giant.
Attack fire giant.
Surely we're not doing the big one, right? This is not a good idea, man. I hate this call. Because we don't have any ADC here. Salt Mage. This is so risky. Who got the dagger? Sol did. Dude, that is so unnecessarily risky. That right there's why I hated the call. I'm glad I kept an eye on the fire giant, because otherwise I'm not sure we would have gotten it. Land with past your window didn't... no, I don't know about anything about that, Dutch. It wasn't mine, for sure. I've hit every single one of my lamps this game. I definitely have hit every single one of them.
An enemy has been slain.
Good plug. Dude, I can't even hit a single ability. I'm just helping my team by giving them some kills too, you know? Like a good teammate.
Destroyed a middle enemy tower.
Alright, it's back. I could try Soul Reaver, honestly. See how it does on Aladdin, but I don't really think it's much of an Aladdin item. Assuming... I don't know, would it scale off of the lamp scalings as well? Does it just scale off of my int? Yeah, of your intelligence. So like it would also be increased by having 3k pots? Like surely that's good on everyone. I don't even know, man. Dude, this server is definitely a bit laggy. I'm sure you guys could tell there. I dashed twice. I feel like I need to press my abilities so fast. And they just surrendered, okay. We're they're 10k down, but
We'll play the game
even
so
so.
well.
Tragic.
Victory.
I would have liked this not to end as early, because Aladdin is fun, but at the same time, if it's a laggy server, I might have just gotten pissed later for something happening, so... Fighting call won you the match. Clean. You're right. What's this? It's giving... What's giving? Oh yeah, it's the market, right. I think I have everything now. No, I don't. No, okay. Still a bit more. But then I think it's the last thing. Yes. Now I just need the jump stamp that I will never use. Guys, thoughts on jump stamps being back? I heard some people like them. But I have a hard time understanding it. I'm not gonna lie. But maybe it's just my competitive spirit that doesn't like them. What do you want from the game? There's no emote. There's no global emote. Oh, there it is. I like because they show me where the person is going. Yeah, but like on the enemy team, you can see jump stamps. I hate that stuff. So if I jump, they can see me from so far away. That's my main issue with it. It's like if you auto-attack something, you can see the effect of it. And it's much harder to see that on the normal jump. Just the base jump stamp, I guess you can call it. Yeah, let's just ban the usual stuff. I might ban the Afro instead of the Hercules this time though. No, I take it back. Get Herc out. That guy's go fuck himself. I'm taking mid. It's mine.
Select your god.
Right. So I gave them Aladdin here. And I'm not planning on picking bots, so what the fuck am I planning here? Yeah, let's just give him the big Hades. You one-shot me? No, 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 no. That's not how it works here. I one-shot you. It's either that or Chuck that I felt like playing. Oh, Neath, I can't say. This is a juicy Hades game. I like what I'm seeing. These guys. What is this positivity in Smite 2? What's happening? Surely we're dodging now. Oh, he went Chuck ADC. That's great. I love that. He better not build tank. It's actually still fine. I think Chuck ADC could probably work, to be honest, if you're still building the usual really good strength build. It's gonna be pretty good into most ADCs. I mean, on a side note, what the fuck am I against? Poseidon? I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a good time in my lane. What do you mean Radiant Hades? What do you mean? You have it too. You also have Radiant Nuwa. I don't want to hear this from a disgusting Nuwa player. But it is true. And in our defense, Dutch, we played Hades before it was cool, right? I even got this Radiant before it was cool. But then suddenly everyone thought he was broken. Oh, disgusting Hades players. Now we're just caught in the mix. Excuse me, I did this before it was cool. Like, Sav inspired you, and then you inspired me to just play the Hades. And turned out he was actually pretty good.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. To press this no to a pause.
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty sure this is the hardest comp to kill I've ever seen. What do you mean, us? Yeah, you might be right. Because theirs is definitely not. Like, even their Soul frontline on Bologna is pretty easy to kill. Like, the hardest one for that team to kill is going to be the Aladdin. Assuming he doesn't just dash and jump in at every moment he gets. This looks very, very good for me as Hades. I actually think I'm going to do an early Chronos Pendant. Because the more often I have ult, the more I'm going to get kills in this one. And I might need the CC immunity from my ult into this Poseidon, Neath, Hecate nonsense. And Aladdin, I guess. Maybe I don't do Chronos Pendant, I just do Spear of Deso.
Wonderful.
I actually should be just fine. Do I proxy though? What am I against? Of course I can't tell. Hate this bug. Because it could be any of them, to be honest. No, if Poseidon is mid, Neath is gonna be ADC.
I'll attack the Titan.
Or I mean it's gonna be between these two, yeah. It's probably gonna be Olona then. Oh, it's Bologna? Okay. That's good. I would rather deal with Bologna than Hecate, because Bologna at least needs to get in my face to do anything. And I like that. Shh. She can't know I'm here.
Minions have spawned.
What are you doing? Oh, you started your 1-2. That's fantastic. I don't want to blink for this. Guess I needed to anyway.
Retreat!
Enemy missing.
What is your problem? Oh my god.
Enemy missing.
Help. Read it.
This guy's like a JoJo villain.
Careful, right. Enemy missing.
I'm just gonna do this while I actually have the chance, otherwise he's gonna W me to death. Missed.
Enemy missing.
Hello, Immortal Ram. Good to see you.
Enemies in the right jungle.
Your left tower is under attack.
I didn't expect such aura from this guy. But I'm level 3 now, I should be good. Oh, this is a bad server again. Are you kidding me? At least I'm playing Hades, so it won't matter a whole lot. But I do feel the lag even more than I did in the Aladdin game.
Be careful.
Damn, Aladdin was just watching. That's unfortunate. Still, I don't think that was a good fight for them.
An ally has been slain.
Completed.
An enemy has been slain. Follow me. An ally has been slain. Double
No
kill.
minions for you.
Killing spree.
Attack.
Just got blink. It's not gonna be up just yet though.
Your middle tower is under attack. You have slain an enemy.
And he just TP'd, so I can deny this wave for him too. Let's do that. So, chat. Any big games you're looking forward to? That's coming out anytime soon? Or I guess in the near future. New Witcher, yeah, that's pretty far off, I would say. I would imagine at least like 3 or 4 years.
Careful left.
Double kill.
I'm impressed.
Killing spree.
He wished for power too, I just heard it. That must have happened as he died.
Enemy missing middle. Be careful left.
Enemy missing. Enemy missing. Enemy missing. Enemy missing.
No problem.
Okay.
Be careful, right?
Ultimate is ready. On my way. You are impressive.
An enemy has been slain.
Excellent.
Nice job. Sword here.
I'll take a blink. I was kind of hoping for the ult though.
Hi.
The blink is better though to use, just because it's a much longer cooldown. What? I'm so surprised my 3 didn't hit her in time. Damn. Guess I should have feared first.
Enemy missing right.
But yeah, I guess back on track with the topic. I'm pretty excited for the new Witch as well. But I still need to see more. I mean, just conceptually, I'm obviously interested, but a lot of the
An enemy has been
CG Project Red, like main developers on The Witcher 3, aren't really there anymore. So I don't know how that looks. But then they announced the ex-developers now announced their next game, or I guess first game, with their split up studio, and it's like vampire themed. It looks super fucking cool. What's it called again? It was like Dawn, something Dawn. It looked super cool. And honestly, I'm way more interested in that, because let's be real, there is not enough good vampire games. Or just vampire themed games.
On my way.
An ally has been slain. Double kill.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong, there are good games, but there's just not enough. There's just not that many. Like, V Rising is fantastic, but it's also not a... Like, I guess I can clarify a bit more. There is no really nice, like, single-player type exploration with vampire games. Or just vampires as a theme. It's always like online stuff or survival stuff, though I'm fine with V Rising, because that's a fantastic game. I love that game. Except for the ending. The last few bosses in that game are just made to be raid bosses, and that's super unfun. But I mean, as a single-player game specifically, I didn't enjoy the last few parts of it. But I do love the game itself. Spent a lot of time in that game. But I cannot think of a single good vampire-themed, like, single-player adventure game that isn't V Rising and potentially like the Castlevania Shadow Lords? Is that what it's called? There's something else as well, but That game was only like okay. It wasn't really that good. Yeah, they want to have some in-game. I mean, that does make sense. I just think it sucks for the last few bosses to be not soloable, because that's kind of just sucks, I guess. Obviously, you can cheat. You can just make put your God mode on and stuff like that. But I didn't realize that was a thing, because I just wanted the authentic experience when I played it. So I essentially got to full in-game and max level and everything, just to learn that I can't do the last few bosses, because it's not possible to solo them, unless you like, you know, obviously cheese it in some kind of way. I wanted the authentic experience, you know.
The pyro has arrived. Double kill.
Bye.
Yeah, I mean, I probably maybe could have done it if I spent... Like, one of them I did solo. I did end up soloing one of them. But then I got to the last one and I was like, I don't want to go through this again. And this does come from someone who loves, like, From Software's games as a whole. I love Elden Ring, Dark Souls, Sekiro. Every single one of them are, like, my favorite games. But it's just that the way it worked in V Rising just wasn't as fun to me. I felt like I didn't need that difficulty in the game. I was just having fun chilling in the world and building stuff. It's just different.
Ultimate is ready.
But I'm a sucker for like open world survival games that has combat involved. Like Valheim is like my favorite shit. That is such a fun game.
Enemy missing middle. Enemy missing middle.
Enemy missing left. Cancel that. An enemy has been slain.
Enemy missing middle. Be careful, right?
An ally has been slain.
To the death.
I think part of what my problem was with them is that the last two specifically, and only the last two, didn't feel balanced for single player gameplay. Because she was so heavily targeted on the like some things. And I read as well that they were planned to be raid bosses, like they were meant to be soloable.
On my way.
But I don't really know the details, but that is unfortunate because I was having a great time with it, but I wasn't able to kill the last one specifically because it was too difficult, and I would have to grind an absurd amount of new stuff to,
Double kill. Shut down.
you know, to be able to actually level up more. And I was hitting a wall. I was like, I'm done grinding. I don't want to grind anymore, because that game definitely does have some tedious grinding with all the paper and stuff, all this shit you need to grind. It wasn't fun grinding.
An enemy has been slain.
Wait, excuse me. What? You guys saw that too, right? My dash fucking went off, and I couldn't use anything while the animation played, and it didn't go off. What the hell, man? These fucking servers are driving me crazy. Give me a good server. Like, they don't feel terrible, but, like, as you can see, some of my abilities just don't go off as they should. It's awful. Oh, I didn't see anything? That sucks, man. I missed it.
Enemy missing.
I'm also losing my voice for some reason. I want red buff.
Oh, yes!
have anything up. I guess that was a bad time because no one was in mid anymore to keep them company. I need some water.
Overpower and manipulate.
I also do not know where Aladdin came from. Was he just waiting for the buff like me? Or did he see me somewhere?
Your left tower is under attack.
I actually forgot we had this Chuck ADC. Seems to be going fine.
Your left tower is under attack.
Enemy missing right.
Your left tower.
Attack the Gold Fury. Enemies at the
incoming
Gold
left.
Fury.
Enemies incoming left.
An enemy has been slain.
Okay. On my way. On my way.
An ally has been slain.
I do need to rotate for this
Your
stuff.
middle tower
I really
is
should
under
just be in the
attack.
fights on the highest level in the game. With our Loki.
An enemy has been slain.
Enemy ultimate down.
Oh well, it's too late for me.
Oh yes.
An enemy has been slain.
You are impressive.
And I believe Bellona ulted, so...
You are.
Let's blink at least.
Ultimate is ready. Another day will rise.
Don't want to risk red again. I'll just end up dying. Again.
Be careful left. Be careful middle. Retreat.
Enemies incoming middle.
Come on and hit me. On my way. Enemy ultimate down.
I'll catch up eventually. Come back. No, out of range.
Enemy spotted.
Yeah, how does it feel to get W keyed the whole game, huh? That's how it feels. Ow.
An ally has been slain.
I mean... Fuck me, dude. He actually... Who has Aegis, man? I mean, it's good, honestly, that he has Aegis. But that's so tragic.
An enemy has been slain.
Is that what I wanted to buy? I don't think it was. I think I was going to Obsidian Shard, but do I even need to? I don't think I need Obsidian Shard this game when I'm looking at everything. None of them is building any tank, except for the Hecate, but I'm not really going to be ulting the Hecate much, I think. If I can avoid it. Damn it, man.
It fails me.
I feel like I should have killed at least one of them. And I probably would have killed both if I had got the hit on the Aladdin, because he would have been blighted too.
Returning to base.
So I would have healed more and would have done more damage to the Bologna besides.
Ultimate is ready.
I even played it perfectly up until I wasted my 3 on his Aegis. I got the poly hit and everything.
Another day will rise. Another day will rise.
That was weird. I think I'm the only one who really saw that, but the ward that I placed above Fire Giant spotted that the blue was down. That's really long vision that we don't see, but I guess it sees it.
Enemy missing.
That's very strange. Oh, it spotted that all the way back there.
Be careful, enemy missing. Retreat.
Okay. I guess I need to stop fighting Bologna, because she's not going to be alone anymore. I even blinked. Dude, she ulted on me too. I can't read her. She does weird shit every time. I didn't even need to blink, because she ulted on top of me. This dude is a mastermind.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Killing spree.
Well, it's time that I ignore the Bologna and look for someone else, because I cannot be wasting my ult on Bologna anymore. Aladdin's becoming a problem. But oh boy, do I wish I wasn't lagging again, Hyris.
Your right tower is under attack.
The thing is, if no one can, if you yourself don't know what you're doing, how is the enemy supposed to know what you're doing? I feel like that's the type of thing he's dealing with right now.
Your right tower is under attack.
Dude, it's so laggy. It's like it's getting worse. Why am I the only one who feels this pain?
Be careful, right.
Ultimate is ready.
Can we block in people now?
Enemy ultimate down.
I mean, I could have got a bigger ult, boys.
Deicide.
Attack the fire giant.
Attack fire giant.
On my way.
I couldn't even see anything. I wasn't sure at first if it was good or not. We need to kill him.
Attack fire giant.
Let's not call attention to us. Attack fire giant.
Attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Your team destroyed the fire giant.
I think Horus should get that, for sure.
No.
Your team has destroyed the pyromancer. Oh yeah.
I mean, only one of them have beats. I just realized that too. They can't get out of my ult if their escapabilities are down. Damn, that is really good for us.
On my way. Your right tower is under attack.
And no one's here anyway. I'm backing then.
I'll attack middle lane.
Group up.
Yes, you
Still
are
Helm of
in
Darkness last. An item I have been ignoring too much on Hades, when I really should just always buy it.
Okay. Attack the Gold Fury. Completed.
attack the right lane. Better to keep a low profile.
Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower.
Better to keep battle, my children.
Destroyed a right enemy tower. An ally has been slain.
Attack the Titan.
Your team has destroyed a right enemy phoenix.
Kinda needs some creeps in, otherwise we ain't killing it. I think we could have ended, but
Okay.
I also don't like risking it. And we can just get towers and stuff for free.
My power grows.
I don't know if Neith just doesn't have backflip or whatever, but she never ults or get backflips out of my ult.
Your
It feels
left
like.
tower is under attack. Attack fire giant.
Definitely wasting time. Fire Giant is super free.
Attack fire giant. Attack fire giant.
Just no ADC, man. Really cannot kill these things very fast.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Need healing.
Let's give me those minions.
Attack middle lane. An enemy has been slain.
I even ulted just to make sure we got him, man.
Double kill. Killing spree. An enemy has been slain. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy phoenix.
Beats me.
Enemy has been slain. Shut down.
Have fun.
Yeah, this one was definitely a bit in our favor in terms of just, I think, skill. Like, Shuya is the only one I recognize in their team who was able to fight back in any way. But I honestly don't mind that just a few times now. I've had so many games like this on the opposite side. I am completely fine with a few of these. Preferably in games where I'm not lagging, though. Horik, since I started playing with you, I've been lagging a bit. Make sure we're to EU. I assume we are, because Shuya is also here, but still. I'm almost afraid to pick something that needs skill shotting, if I might be lagging. It's gonna be unplayable if I pick something like Uller or Ra. Do we know how long these new battle passes will last? I assume it's about the same length, but the other ones is coming soon. That's the only thing that confuses me. Because I don't think it's coming soon if it's in like 40 days. Which would be about the same length as the usual like season, like 2 months or whatever. 2 or 3 months. Soul ban. It's a bit weird to me. Even though I can't get it, she's definitely good.
Select your god.
I'm tempted to actually try Achilles one more time, just to confirm whether he is something I feel like playing or not. I'll do it. I wanna give it another shot. I haven't tried it on stream either. I've tried a few times in casual to see if I could find a build that I think is fun with him. But now that I've seen some other people play him, I might want to give it a shot. Let's see how it goes. Hades is going to be fucking tough, though. That is not something I actually want to meet playing Achilles. Still, I think there are worse matchups, but Hades is still just super annoying. He's hard to beat, because if you don't one-shot him, like, he's going to heal it up throughout the waves. Can't be easy. Though that could be a Hades mid. Oh, looks like it's Hades solo. Alright.
Achilles.
Achilles. So I've seen some people whine about his face. I didn't really look at him much before. Is he ugly? Because I don't think he is. I think he's a very pretty man. But I don't know if he looks very different. I kind of like it for the simple reason that his eyes don't feel dead, because they're actually moving. A lot of the gods are just blankly staring at you. Like Modred, I love Modred, but he looks fucking dead. Thought his hair was a little bit darker. Yeah, I seen specifically people whine about his face. Maybe it's just a bit wider. Like his picture is definitely, if you look at like the artwork, but the artwork obviously like often look very different. But I don't know. Suppose we'll see. I don't think they're gonna change it either way, but like brown blonde. Yeah, I get you. Maybe they, I mean, I think it makes sense that he's blonde if that's what they were going for. I need to take off my clothes here.
More agile against these enemies.
Who was their first pick? This guy? Dude, I don't even know who that is. There are so many that I don't recognize in these games, which is both good and bad. I'm happy to see like more unknown people, potential new names that are actually good, that rises up in the ranks. But it's also slightly worrying, because it could just be that it's a super baby game. And I apologize for constantly losing my voice today. I don't know what's happening. I most surely have more pots than he does, so I will go be an asshole.
Minions have spawned.
Oh, I'm turning up the asshole meter completely.
Excellent.
Maybe I'm not. There's one pot left.
That's not good.
Let's take these at least. Did we just lose our whole jungle? I would really appreciate it if I didn't lose my blue buff. No, it's still up. Don't know what mid's talking about then. Does anyone know? Do you level the 3 or the 1 in Smite 2? Because I'm not actually sure. I think for this one I level my 2 or my 3. Because I think poking him will be easier with the 3 than the 1. And the 1 also just feels very all-in. The 3 is a lot more about controlling. Probably will do a lot more damage if you actually hit both.
An ally has been slain.
That's no good.
I want to see if I can zone him off of this.
On my way. On my way.
They're just sat in the bush barrel.
That's no good. This will not do.
Let's get a blue timer here. It is actually up. Damn.
Enemy missing right. Help! Completed. On my way.
I don't want to back yet. I would like to finish a full item on this back, if I can.
Are you ready? Your right tower is under attack.
It's alright. I'll trade an ult.
Watch yourself.
Gank left line.
Watch yourself. Enemy ultimate down.
Gank.
It's too late for that boy. Can't call gank.
Are you ready for this?
He's already out. Alright, let's back. I saw Nem out on this side there. My blue buff, no! At least I did still his, so I didn't lose a big chunk of XP, but... Oh.
On my way.
An ally has been slain. Are you ready for this? Watch yourself.
I do feel like you heal a lot more with the 2 than you did in Smite 1. It feels like he has really good sustain.
Killing spree.
Nice work.
I like zoning with the Minotaurs, so I'm gonna keep doing that.
Out of mana.
Retreat!
Enemy missing left. Cancel that.
This will not do.
Damn, okay, you can actually interrupt the one. It's crazy.
Falling back. Out of mana. Panther spirit.
It's kind of scary, taking a risk just sitting in that ult. Damn, dude, the healing is kind of nuts. I was so low, now I'm practically full HP again.
Are you ready?
Spread out.
Behind
Spread
us.
out.
Are you ready? An ally has been
Enemy
slain.
ultimate down.
Enemy missing left.
What's happening?
Excellent.
I should have just rotated. That actually would have been really good. But I'm losing waves if I do it now. I don't want to do that.
On my way.
An ally has been slain. Your left tower
Damn it.
is under attack.
The dilemma. To rotate or not to rotate.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Excellent.
What is Horik playing this game? Is mid. Okay.
Be careful, right?
Are you ready for me?
On my way. Attack. On my
I
way.
can actually buy it. I'll back.
An enemy has been slain.
Completed. Enemy ultimate down.
Watch yourself. Enemy missing left. Are you ready?
Help.
Damn it. It really does stutter sometimes when I
Yeah, I've got a word,
get out
bro.
of the game.
Are you ready for me?
Enemy missing.
It still stutters. Let me see if I can just...
Why the fuck are you taking speed buff?
Rat.
The pirate has arrived.
Gank.
Your right tower is under attack.
Okay. Bye.
Are you ready for killing spree?
Enemy ultimate down.
I fucking missed my one, man. That was an actual kill.
Right.
I flicked it too hard. That is absolutely tragic.
On my way. Gank.
I could have blinked as well to get out. I was just really looking for that kill. He ran back into that cookie wall.
An enemy has been slain.
Damn it, now Hades caught up to me. Fuck.
Your left tower is under attack.
Enemy ultimate.
Watch yourself.
I think it's time that I try to get out of his ultimate instead of just standing in it. Unless he's low.
Your right tower is under attack.
Enemies at the gold fury.
Watch yourself. Are you ready for it?
Nice work.
An enemy has been slain.
Enemy spotted.
Killing spree. I'm impressed.
Nice work.
Prepare yourself. An enemy has been slain.
It's cool. Should be a tower here then. He does have a bit too much burst. I could fight him maybe if I went for some kind of protection.
Gank.
If I go protection here, it's gonna be something like Spirit Rope, just to get like max value and a lot of protection out of just a single item. Oh no, that was a big
An
cold.
ally has been slain.
The party's
No way, man. Why did we fight that? I guess we didn't have any cooldowns. Tragic, man. I'm playing this bit rough. I gotta shape up a bit. I need defense of some kind.
Your left tower is under attack.
Maybe shifters. Actually, maybe Stone of Binding wouldn't be bad. Assuming I hit the stun, that's kind of the problem. I'll just Spirit Rope.
Ready for me. Your left tower has been destroyed.
This has also been a very strange solo game. Not a single jungler on either side has been there once. What a rare occasion.
An ally has been slain.
Enemy missing left.
enemy ultimate down.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Are you ready for it?
The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
Enemy missing left. Be careful middle. Are you ready? Prepare yourself. Killing spree. On my way. Shut down. An enemy has been slain. Enemy missing middle. Are you ready? You have been slain.
Man,
All right.
what is happening? How are we not killing him there? Fuck that Aegis he did. That's terrible. You can laugh, that's fine. It is really silly. I mean, it's partly my own fault, because I'm full damage, and he fucks me up in that ult, and I can't get out of it with my dash. So, it is a terrible matchup for me. Your laughing is very understandable. I just need to stop fighting him. But I only did it because you came over, Horik.
Missing right.
Because it's really not a matchup I can take anymore. Even with my anti-healing. That was a good Aegis though, because I used both my 1 as well as Horik's combo. And he actually just got that with his Aegis.
On my way.
Bye.
Killing spree.
Rise again.
Why me?
Ally has been slain. You have slain an enemy.
Shield.
An enemy has been slain. Double kill. Killing spree. Deicide.
Yes. Be
Dude, this
sure
game's
to
so much
rest.
easier when it's not Hades in my face. I can deal with the others. Hades, all Hades needs to do is just press 4 and he kills me.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
Thanks.
I also do have protection now, which does help. I will admit, protection does help. At least a little bit.
Are you ready?
I'm also not an expert Achilles. He's definitely one of my least played gods since Smite 1, just overall. Excluding like new gods at the time. I was just never really interested in playing him.
Help!
On my way.
Help!
Are you ready?
don't even one-shot these anymore.
Attack.
Retreat right.
An enemy has
Enemies
been slain.
incoming.
Watch yourself.
Big club. It's no problem.
I'm actually okay with trading my ult for his right now. His ult is way bigger. There is no way he fucking...
Excellent.
We don't have no walled up either. Fuck me, dude. I don't want this. I still got the auto off on him too, I just didn't do enough damage. If only I had more damage. What did I good spirit rope? Oh, that was better at least. But let's do this Chronos pendant as well. His cooldowns are just so much lower than mine too. Yeah, I mean 7 and 10. Hades with Chronos pendant is gonna be like 5 with his fucking 3 and like maybe 7 or 8 with the dash. It's not gonna be a good trade. Not to mention he has poly. That's also a bigger thing. It adds to it. He's damaged there.
Enemy missing left.
Attack.
Behind us. Slay an enemy.
Oh yeah.
Rampage.
I mean, where did you guys go? Why was I alone suddenly? With 3 on me. They killed Nemesis, I guess, so it's fine, but that's so funny, I was just left alone. I'm a little sad how that fight went overall though. Hades should never have gotten a 4-man ult when I'm literally calling for it.
Your team has destroyed the pyromancer.
Oh. Big butts. I think we're kind of lucky that their Jingwei isn't really in this game. If she was, I think my life would have been absolute hell with this build. I'm just gonna get crit to death before I even get close to her.
Your right tower is under
I'm playing
attack.
like shit anyway, so.
Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Your right tower is under attack.
Actually, now that I think about it, maybe I go for a Shielded Phoenix. I do spam abilities quite a bit. That extra healing could actually be quite useful.
Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Are you ready for...
Attack fire giant.
Watch yourself.
On my way.
Be careful, right. Attack fire giant.
Enemies
Don't
have
be
returned to
glum.
base.
It's no problem.
Your team has destroyed the fire giant. An ally been slain.
Enemy ultimate down.
Your middle tower is under attack. An enemy has been slain.
Fuck, man. Damn it.
Cancel that.
I heard the back. I saw Jingwei move. But when she started moving, I didn't expect her to just back like a few steps later in. I actually expected her to try and run.
Shut down. Are you ready?
Not stone. Prepare yourself.
Double kill.
Okay. That's really not good. We need to stop fucking letting Hades do that. Says the one who's got like killed by him 3 times or whatever this game.
On my way.
Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has been destroyed. The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
I have almost 4k, I didn't even realize. Tom's back. Actually, I really should just do a Void Shield instead. That makes more sense. We're still firing me for another 115 seconds.
Watch yourself. Your middle tower is under attack.
Of course.
Enemy ultimate down.
On my way.
Ah, there he is. Can we knock? No, we cannot. Okay. They're out then.
Yes. Enemies in left lane.
Uh-oh.
Killing spree.
That's not good.
Retreat.
On my way.
Retreat.
Harder they fall.
Watch yourself. You have been slain.
I really wish I wasn't so squishy at times. Hades is carrying them so hard right now, but that was such a bad death we had there. Or just this overall fight. Should not have gone this bad.
Rampage.
I regret this. I'm selling this. I'm gonna go for more defense. I'm tired of getting like 2-shot. And honestly, it's probably mostly magic defense I need. Because it's Hades and Kukulkan, I feel like that fucks me up. Let's just do only hunters then.
Your middle tower is under attack.
See if this works better.
Your middle
Can
tower
definitely
has
still
been
defend mid.
destroyed. Defend middle lane.
No?
Your middle phoenix
Okay.
is under
Noah, please.
Your middle phoenix has been destroyed. Your titan is under attack. Your right tower is under attack. An ally has been slain. Deus among. Your titan is under attack. Your right tower is under attack.
People just ignored Sobek. I accidentally put on my armor as well, which is not ideal. I do not know what the bonuses are with the armor. Actually, I get a lot more health, but damn. Maybe I should have done that earlier. I didn't realize how much health I would get.
Your right tower is under attack.
But then I can chase as well.
Destroyed a middle enemy tower. Your right tower is under attack. Your team has destroyed a middle enemy retreat. Your right tower is under attack.
Defend left lane.
Your left tower is under attack.
On my way.
Your right tower is under attack.
Enemies at the fire giant. Enemies at the fire giant.
Dude, I was pressing it because Sobek blocked me. I couldn't fucking use it. Oh, I'm so pissed, man. I fucking got the dagger. Oh, this is just not my game, man.
This will not.
Oh, that's so tilting. Achilles is rough to play, I feel like. I just can't go on anyone without getting shit on, and that is even in a game like this where I feel like their backline isn't doing anything. It's just Kukulkan. Kukulkan and Hades are a problem, but Hades I can ignore, Kukulkan I can't, but he just fucks me up so fast. That's huge. I thought it was gonna be.
Attack the goal.
We need wards.
Maybe I just sell the Onis Hunters again. I just hope for the best and try and one-shot. I don't even know anymore. But now I'll keep it. Just go for 3k pots, whatever.
The enemy team has destroyed the pyramid.
Don't be glum. It's no
I
problem.
should be more agile against these enemies.
Like 33 strength. What is the exact numbers?
Please, man.
It's level
Yes.
based, okay.
Be right back.
Is he gonna take speed or not? Because I would like speed.
On my way.
Help middle lane.
It's a trap.
An enemy has been slain.
Moving back. Good.
Double kill. You have been slain.
Tragic. Dude, it took him so long to use that dagger too. Well, it is what it is, boys. Nemesis finding me is so fucking random too. I don't know what our team is so unhappy about though. That worked out pretty well for me though in that case. Trading myself for Jingwei. I would have liked not to die though. Would have been fine if I had someone else to peel with me. Could maybe have killed her. Yeah, balls. honestly trying to fight Nemesis.
Retreat!
Don't be glum. It's no problem.
Dude, if Nemesis was good, she would fuck him up right then and there. But she also kind of, what the fuck is her build? She's ability based? Huh. That's weird.
The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Are you ready?
Ability based Nemesis.
The Pyromancer has arrived.
Cancel that.
Tragic, I need to blink away from that. Dude. They must have wards, because otherwise there's no way the Kukul kind of feel like would back off like that.
Defend the fire giant.
Yes. It's a trap.
Right leg.
It's a trap.
You have slain an enemy.
I should not have won this trade. I fucked that up completely by missing my ult. Even if it wasn't gonna be execute, it would still do so much damage.
Double kill.
It's no problem.
I'm gonna go look for someone else.
Enemy missing.
Excellent. Enemies at the fire giant.
Cancel that.
Don't be glum.
Enemy missing.
It's no problem. Enemies in middle lane.
As long as we don't have any vision on fire, I don't really want to move.
Retreat. Your left
Dude,
tower
what is he doing there? Okay.
Baron, please.
has been slain.
What in the actual shit was that, buddy? Dash me.
Your left tower is under attack. Ready for me. Watch yourself.
I don't think we win this fight, Achilles.
We're just stalling. They leached it. We just need to show presence, that's honestly it.
Are you ready? Watch yourself.
Massive. Achilles, you got such a big willy.
Thanks. Attack fire giant.
Be careful.
Damn, what a compliment.
Your team has destroyed the fire giant.
Excellent. Attack left lane.
Now with two Or I guess 1 at the time, 3k pot. I do now have enough damage to kill the Hades. Finally.
An enemy has been slain. Killing spree.
I can't. Fuck me, dude. He stops for the buff. I can catch up now.
Are you ready for me? Killing spree.
Attack middle lane. Attack middle lane.
Attack the Titan. Double kill.
Let's keep this going on. Attack middle lane.
Oh, please tank it. I have my ult for Hades.
Yeah, don't group for Hades ult. I was gonna try and stun him before he got his ult off, but that's unfortunate. That's fine. That's an awkward game for me, honestly. I think I could have played this game so much better, but I mean, I'll admit
GG.
it.
Oh yeah.
I'll admit it. I am bad at playing Achilles, so. And I wanted to. This is the first time I essentially tried this almost full damage build on him, and then going into a Hades, I think made it a bit more difficult than it needed to be. Especially when the Hades wasn't like. I don't want to sit and say that this guy was that good. I think he played Hades just fine. Might sound a bit stupid when I got sold by him a few times, but it's not hard to play Hades. Just based on what he was doing and how he was playing, I shouldn't even have gotten a lead early on, I think. But I did. But once I decided to try and keep fighting him, when he had like 2 or 3 items online, that's when I started getting smacked. And to be fair, the first time I got sold, I should have killed him, I just fucked up. So I threw the lead that I had. But now it just sounds like I'm making excuses. I could have played this game much better, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. I'm glad it worked out, though, in the end. Same, yeah. Yeah, I think you and me kind of inted a few times, even if we were the ones kind of starting fights and stuff. I definitely had moments, mostly in lane for me, but like, I had so many moments where I just took a dumb fight. And when I took a good fight, I fucked that good fight up, and then I died anyway. It was just really silly of me. It was just Hades, really. Like, Hades Kukulkan is so tough for like a melee with low mobility. Because I can't stick to them very well. And they can one-shot me so easily. With all their shit. Hello, Ollie. I think I will let them ban Armor this time. I shouldn't be banning it as first pick. Let's get Afro. Or they can just give it to me. That also works. Maybe I'll play 1 Armor game today. And then not touch her for a week. Nope. Finn or Herc? I'll get Finn up.
Select your god.
That works for me. I wasn't planning on picking bots. I still actually haven't heard from any, like, jungler what they think about bots now, after the nerfs. Bots is still obviously very good, but I wonder if, like, top-tier junglers now would prefer going without the aspect. I still imagine the aspect is better, just in general. Damn, look at this guy. Yeah, he's dodging then, that's fine. What a weird thing to say. I guess the low elos really like banning Saul. It's probably the biggest low elo comment I've heard all day. Probably all week, honestly. I would rather ban Fenrir any day of the week over Saul. I haven't banned her once. Like, Saul isn't that... Like, she's definitely good. But I haven't... Like, I don't think Saul is ban worthy. Unless we're against someone I feel like I would ban it against. You just jump on her and kill her. Like, Saul, even though Saul does a lot of damage now, she still suffers from the same issues as she always has. You just go on her and you kill her, because she can't fucking get away. That's her problem. That shit hasn't changed. It's the same thing when Zeus was supposedly super broken in terms of damage. People barely even picked or banned it. They banned him when Chain Lightning was super broken, because that was just way too random and it would just wipe your whole team. But Saul doesn't have anything like that. The instant Saul ban. I am not scared of whoever is top pick. I'm not gonna lie. Ban Saul all you want. Actually, it does suck they ban Saul, because that means they are banning something I actually think is annoying, like Aphrodite or Fenrir. Do I ban bots, though? No, I'll ban Aphrodite.
Select your god.
Was Amma so good now? Because the damn aspect. She got an aspect that basically gives her Fatalis effect for like... I think it just got nerfed. It was 6 seconds, now it's 4 seconds. So, but it's, yeah. Her 1 changes, no longer healed, but it gives you Fatalis. And more power. It's just stupid. It's absolutely disgusting. I'll do it in Anubis game. So you build Kins, you build Braggies, you build the usual attack speed nonsense, and you just kill everything in front of you because no one can get away from Amma. She gains movement speed. Let me try and remember how it actually is. She gains movement speed as well as power with her 1 as like a steroid instead of healing and having a different stance. So it's just always the red stance basically. That just makes it even better when you press it. And then it gives you the Fatalis effect. You don't need to do anything else. It's like a bit of a mana ult. Because Amma's autos also have pretty long range, just on standard. Double Fana. What actually did they pick? Another dodge. That's great. Now I will never know what the... Oh, it was Poseidon. Never mind. Right, I knew that. Amma can still be dealt with, but in ranked it's really tough. When you can't communicate with your team. Because you can... Right now you can definitely just CC her and kill her. But... It's just easier said than done in ranked when your team is sometimes handless and don't know what to do about it. I just had a game dodged because someone... because I didn't ban Saul. So he didn't want to play the game. And Saul is also someone who got a new aspect. Which is pretty good. It does make her very good. But... ban-worthy in like higher games isn't really something that happens a whole lot. But in lower elo, apparently she's banned a lot. Ergo, that guy decided to not play the game. Because Saul was open. The only time I've seen that, the last time I saw that happen, it was with Sobek. When Sobek came out, I had someone who in voice chat went, "Why wouldn't we ban Sobek?" And I said, "It doesn't matter, he's not that great." And then he got really mad. Then he got fucking pissed. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that was kind of bad wording by me as well. Because he is good. But at the time, there was a lot of other shit to ban, so he was open. And we only had one ban each at the time, so it was much harder to ban stuff back then. That was not on stream though. That was one of my few off-stream rank games. Don't really do a whole lot of those. I was thinking of not doing a very long stream today, but at this point it's just an average stream length. But I've been having fun and actually been winning, so guess I'll keep going till I lose. Is what I would like to say, but I do need to leave pretty soon because I gotta walk the dog. Oh, it's this guy again. Yes, dodge the game again. I'm not banning Cell, brother. What's the penalty for dodging like a second time? Is it 30 minutes and then 60 minutes and then so on? I don't really know. I've never dodged a game intentionally. 20? Okay. And then 60? Is there like a limit? Can it go to infinity? If you do it enough? I'm sure there is a limit. I have 480? Damn. That's a pretty big jump from 60. Banning Ephra in this case over Fenrir though, even though I'd really like to ban Fenrir again. And then 12 hours, yeah, that seems fine, I guess.
Select your god.
Alright, what do I pick a bit against this unbeatable Sol then? Could just do Hades again, because I do need something that can actually kill Sol. Or Chuck. It's been a while since I've done Chuck game. I'll do Chuck. Could give me Ruler. Should have been faster. Might be alright. They might not pick it. Oh, you're also mid. We might end up lacking physic or magical if you go Uller, but I would say just go Uller anyway. Should be fine. If we hit late game anyway, then it shouldn't really be a problem. Worst case scenario for us, if we don't have magical, is that they have something like Mordred, who is just incredibly good at building full physical defense, and he will be completely unkillable. But if we hit late game, I think we'll be alright. Because I do think Uller is good here. He might dodge again though, this guy. He was the guy that just dodged. So, we'll see. Damn, look at this stream sniper. Who picked Mordred?
Shock!
Oh. The top elo, huh? I see how it is. Who are you? Show yourself. At least I have a good matchup. into Mordred. Just happy I'm not against Hades again. Jugador. Who else would it be? The only Mordred player in Smite 2. I don't know anyone else though. That's 2 now. Oh, wait, who's the other one? Oh yeah, Penny plays a lot of Mordred as well, that's true. I mean, I also play Mordred. It's not like it's insane, but I just don't... I like variety. I need variety. Right. I'll do save start. Otherwise it's gonna be tough. How's the server? I can't tell. Chuck's one always lags for me anyway. I do think Mordred is really fun at the moment though, I'm not gonna lie. I do think one of the reasons is because of Lifebinder. Lifebinder Mordred feels super good. But Lifebinder is also just one of those items that just it's too fucking powerful. It just helps gods that don't necessarily have very good laning early on have a pretty decent laning with some sustain. Smacked into it. I'm guessing I did my smalls.
As cunning as a
He did not do my smalls. Then I will actually just do it. I thought that was why he was missing. Because he wasn't there in wave on time.
careful right. Your middle tower is under attack.
I don't know why I thought I would hit level 3 much earlier than I did.
Ward here. Enemy missing. Your middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack.
It's hard for me to tell with Shock always, as I said before. The hammer or the throw, axe throw has always been a bit weird and laggy for me. So I can't tell if I'm lagging a little bit on this server. I think it's okay. Maybe just some stuttering, but nothing bad. Should be playable.
Attack! Your right tower is under attack. Retreat! Enemies incoming! First blood!
Save yourself! Enemy missing middle.
Help! An ally has been slain. Falling back. Your left tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack. Let's refresh. Completing. Your middle tower is under attack.
Kind of tragic. We lost both red and blue here.
Your left tower.
So whatever Loki got on their side, I hope it's worth it.
Okay, okay.
Let's just go straight into Transcendence. What do I normally actually go here? I think I do something different. I think I normally do a serrated. Probably could have done that too.
Not bad for a sworder. Enemy missing.
Okay.
It's not really a good gank here.
Okay. On my
I'm happy he
Your
blinked,
right tower
because I
is
don't think I
under
would have won
attack.
that trade either way. Yeah, he's got full Phoenix Shield already. I'm not winning against
An ally has
Mordor
been
the
slain.
Phoenix Shield.
Killing spree. Your right tower is under attack.
There is definitely a little bit of lag on my axe throw, more than usual. It's
Your
really fucking
middle
weird.
tower is under attack.
Today has been fucking rough for servers for me. Like 3 games today. Some streams I don't have any bad servers or sessions. Others I just lag so often. And actually when I think about it, it's very often against Jugador. Coincidence? I think not. Fucking Mordred ult. Mordred definitely has some unbalanced shit in his kit. How is he ult up every 5 seconds?
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack. An enemy slain. Double kill. You have slain an enemy. Your left tower is under attack.
Great.
Your left tower is under
Fucking
attack.
great. He just did it.
Okay.
An ally has been slain. Your left tower is under attack.
On my. I'll attack left lane.
The fuck is that, Jugador? Huh?
I need a rest.
No, Sobek fucked that one up by dashing into the lane.
An enemy has
I'll
been
take it
slain.
back. Dude's a legend. Never doubted him. It's not a horrible lag on this server, but I do feel it slightly. It's definitely more playable than the other ones so far. I'm not lagging when I actually use my abilities. It just feels slightly delayed.
Rampage. Your right tower is under attack.
Damn, what is happening around mid?
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack.
Damn. Weird sound issues when Motor ults. I guess he was just out of range or something.
Enemies in the left now, careful.
An ally has been slain.
I'm dead eventually. Kill me, Thana.
Spree. Your right tower is under attack.
The shield lying there just saved me. There's no way I should have survived it. Also, what the fuck? How long does that shit last? Fucking
Your
Gep.
middle tower is under attack. Your left tower is under
Someone else
attack.
died in my stead, though. I don't know who it was. I think it was Sobek.
An ally
Can we
has
just
been
stop
slain.
dying, though?
Your left tower is under attack.
Like... Our late game is so incredibly strong. Even without having some magic damage. At this rate, I'll never get to play the game. And I'm just here against fucking Yugador and his fucking company. Raiding my ass. And I can't do anything about it. duo is just getting super shafted as well.
Your right tower is under attack.
I'll attack left leg.
Cancel that.
We have no kill potential here.
Tower is under attack. Your left tower is under attack.
He's so tanky, we're not killing him. I don't have any pen. My fucking axe does fucking 200 damage max and he has fucking 3000 HP. Absolutely zero chance we're killing him. Dude, they're just doing our buffs on cooldown too. How are there 3 of them on... Wait, how is there 3 people there?
Your middle tower is under attack. Enemy missing right. Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
I see Mordred TP'd.
Double kill. Rampage.
Guess I'm TPing anyway.
An ally has been slain. Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
Bro, Chuck? Were you not high elo, man? Nice. Nice. Nice.
Yeah, but I
nice,
don't know why
nice.
you're trying to do something. Like, we're so far behind everywhere. We can't do anything about it.
What you mean? Trying to do something? What do you mean?
Well, trying to gank so many times on Chuck.
Bro, where should I gank? Where should I do something?
Just
Mid
farm.
is feeding. Mid is feeding his ass out. Carry is feeding his ass out. What do you expect me to do? I need to go somewhere.
Yeah, but like, ganking doesn't help. Like, I just need to farm.
Yeah, I mean, I got his ult. That's at least something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
I mean-
on Mordred, that doesn't matter, though. He just has it in 5 seconds anyway.
Yeah, bro. Okay, then I stay in jungle whole game. What do you expect me to do? Like, seriously.
Well, I'm not
The
blaming.
whole lobby is behind.
I'm just saying
like-
we can't do anything else than farm at the moment. I'm not blaming anyone here. We just need to farm.
Yeah, bro, I'm support, man. I got to go on a lane, you know what I'm saying? And mid is feeding his fucking ass out. He's nowhere.
He's so upset. I get it, but like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah, it's GG anyway. This game is over.
I am lagging as well, though, which is mainly the reason why I don't want to continue this game too.
And for next game, I would ban Sol, personally. It's fucking AIDS. You can't kill her, you can't do nothing. It's overpowered at the moment.
Yeah, I usually don't, because usually people don't feed against it this hard. Like, it really isn't a problem in higher elo at all. But I guess it is usually down here.
Sorry, Mr. Pro Gamer. Sorry.
I mean, I agree, she is broken, but there's so much broken stuff as well. Like, it's hard to ban her every game when you're a second pick.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Yeah, I mean, Ola is a great pick as well, but yeah. Yeah.
It's fine. We might still be able
Yeah,
to if we can
fuck
somehow
me.
just farm small
Yeah, I
buffs.
don't think so. But let's see. Maybe.
It's fine. The fact that I just outplayed them under tower for so long gave me some hope. Some long lost hope. Well, it's gone. Loki died.
Has been slain.
Never mind. It's gone already, boys. Do I understand mid is feeding? Well, The mid feeding usually isn't related to the god they're against. Let me just put it that way. Dying once, sure, I can see that. But dying 5 times tends to not be the... Then it's not the god you're against, it's simply the fact that you're getting outplayed. Also, I can't tell if I'm getting mortar ulted or not, it keeps bugging out. Oh, he's just different mine too now.
An enemy has been slain. Unstoppable. Your middle tower is under attack. An ally has been slain.
These two guys are over chasing super hard. Maybe we can get something out of that.
An enemy has been slain. The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer. Your right tower is under attack. Your middle tower is under attack.
What? Denying myself creeps now.
On my way. Cancel that. The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I do hate dealing with Mordred, specifically Yugador's Mordred, because Mordred is just hard to deal with when he just builds full tank. He's one of the few gods that still do really well building full tank, at least until late game team fighting.
Your middle tower is under attack.
And it's just, it's so annoying to deal with. If you don't have a god that is equipped at dealing with it, that is.
Your left tower is under attack. Your right tower is under attack. Be right back.
I'm honestly pretty confident that we could maybe carry this if we hit the 20s. We're slowly getting closer and they're not really pushing for Fire Giant. It's not looking too bad. The only thing that doesn't fill me with confidence is the lag that I'm experiencing.
The Pyromancer has arrived. Enemy missing
No way, dude. That is... Dude. No, I got fucking robbed. What the fuck was that? No, dude.
An ally has been slain.
There's... I'm actually pissed about that, because that's such a big kill for them. It's good that Thana obviously ended up dying after. That's just well played by Horik to pick that up. But that is an absolute tragedy that the lag ended up getting me killed. Right there is what I mean, guys. That's the lag I'm talking about. He's dead anyway, but getting fire there is big. With the axe of all things too. He bought us some good time.
Killing spree. You have slain an enemy. Your left tower is under attack. Your left tower.
Yeah, I don't know. We just have no damage. It's insane.
We have good damage. I don't think I want to start arguing with this guy, but now we have damage. We've reached the point where we have great damage.
Your left tower has been destroyed.
But as already mentioned, a gigantic problem is Mordred. Because he is just going full physical defense. He will actually just be unkillable for us. How long does that shit last? Medusa getting hella poked. Honestly, I do not know how that went as bad as it did. That was honestly great.
Retreat! Wait! Killing spree! Your middle tower is under attack. Your middle tower has been destroyed. Your middle phoenix is under attack. Your middle phoenix has been destroyed. Your left phoenix is under attack. Deicide. Your left phoenix
Tried to
is
bait for
under
as long as I could. I think that's probably the one game where I feel like the lag wouldn't have made a difference. Like, I'm still kind of doing the same thing as I would be doing, but... Except for the one time Thana did smack me with his ult, because that should not have fucking happened. That was some horse shit.
The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
I'll try and stop talking about the lag constantly, because yeah, I do feel like a broken record constantly mentioning it.
An ally has been slain. Shut down.
We got one kill. Could be worse. Of course they fucking ward where I am. Why wouldn't they?
Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower. Destroyed the fire giant. Your team has destroyed a right enemy tower. Careful right, enemies incoming.
Felt like I was pretty close to getting that one too. Just one more item.
Left attack, left. On my way.
Big damage.
An enemy has been slain. Have fun. You move like a jaguar. Oh, cancel that. The enemy team has destroyed the Gold Fury.
I mean, let's give praise where praise is worth, alright? Let's not hate on people just because they have had a rough game. That's weird.
Your right tower has been destroyed.
That's not how this works.
Your right Phoenix is under attack.
Jesus Christ.
The pirate. Your right Phoenix is under attack. An ally has been slain. Double kill. Interlaid down his line. Defend middle lane, left lane. Enemies incoming. Be careful, defend right lane.
Mordred is never dying, man. Mordred is unkillable. In every single sense of the word in this game, man. Eventually, at least eventually, ADCs will get all the 3k pots and stuff, and he will be killable, but... Dude... it's all the physical defense items in the game, man. Just living the life. Alright, finally. Full build.
On my way. Over and out.
I think he's a bit cooked.
An ally has been slain.
We don't need to group though. We need to just stop running around alone.
Group up. We need wards. The enemy team has destroyed the Pyromancer.
Oh, I got soul really low at least. God damn it, dude. Fucking, once again. I wanted to sneak behind, but it was a bit of an aggressive path for me there. I wanted to sneak behind fire and look for poking and sneaking and stealing and shit.
Enemy ultimate incoming.
Okay, that's then old.
The enemy team has destroyed the fire gun. Your team has destroyed the Gold Fury. Your left Phoenix is under attack. Your left Phoenix has been destroyed. Your middle Phoenix is under attack. Your middle Phoenix has been destroyed.
Fuck me, dude. How did that even hit me? No! How am I not in front of it?
An enemy has been slain. Deicide. Attack.
They can push mid, I'll just push right. Should
Your
work
team
out
has
just fine.
destroyed a middle enemy tower.
I don't think we're ending this though, but 2 Phoenixes is really good for us.
Destroyed a middle enemy Phoenix. Slain an enemy. Deicide. The Pyromancer has arrived.
I'm gonna check their red as well. That'd be such a good pickup for me right now.
Retreat. We need wards.
I do wonder if intelligence would be more valuable for 3k pots. I've never really been too sure of that.
Be right back. On my way. Be careful, middle. Yeah. Be careful, middle.
Hit someone for a decent amount. Also, why does it feel like I'm the only one warding? We need way more wards here.
Enemies in right lane. Defend the gold fury. Enemy missing right. Attack fire giant. Okay. Your team has destroyed the fire giant.
I don't know about chasing. We should really just... Okay, good luck.
An ally has been slain. Double kill. Attack middle lane. Attack right lane. Attack the Titan. Your team has destroyed a right enemy Phoenix. See you later.
Well, we actually won. Fuck me. You were right. I don't even know how.
Just need hope, boys. Alright. I think that is definitely enough for me for now. That game was slightly frustrating in a few ways. From lag to team giving up, but it's... yeah. Yeah, I get it, Oric. 4-15. You played better than your score says, buddy. Don't worry. Tilt the fuck off? Yeah, I get it, man. I get it. I've had games like that too. Alright. I do need to walk the dog as well. So... yeah, I mean, it's tough, Horik. It's really tough when... like, being support in a game where everyone is falling behind is really fucking hard. Because you need to split somewhere, but everyone else is also behind, so it sucks, you know? I fully get it. Because you also came to my land for ganks and stuff, which just... his argument was he needed farm, but like I was simply trying to tell him that you shouldn't be ganking because it's useless. If you want to come for the wave, that's fine. If you want a bit of farm, that's completely fine. But ganking the full tank Mordred that I don't damage at all is completely useless and a waste of time for both of us. But I think he took it a bit differently. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.